All right, everybody, and welcome back to the Starving Artist Development Podcast, where we talk to Detroit's cultural artists about the highs, the lows, and how they're using their creativity to move the city forward. I am your host, Gabrielle Carruthers, and we are back with another episode of the SAD Podcast. Today, I am joined by one of my fellow colleagues, Denzel Turner. Denzel is the podcast host of Black Friday's podcast, but he is also a marketing maven. So make sure you check him out. He also just wrapped up the Black Business Saturday tour bus. And I missed it, but I will be on the next tour bus. But let's just say Denzel is definitely putting his money where his mouth is when it comes to supporting Black owned businesses and keeping the Black community lifted. So, Denzel, thank you for joining us today.
Of course. What up, though? And thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, tell the audience a little bit more about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, of course. So, like you mentioned, I'm the host of the Black Fridays podcast. Started the platform back in 2020 after the civil unrest that surrounded George Floyd's murder, and looking for an avenue for my own civic engagement. And I wanted to be able to combine my experience working in corporate and marketing, and then also my love of media and communications and being able to talk to people about their business journey. So I started a weekly platform on Instagram Live, and then that matured into a podcast platform in which I've been able to have the likes of our current mayor of Detroit, Mary Sheffield, on the show, our lieutenant governor, first Black lieutenant governor, Garland Gilchrist, former Detroit Lions legend Herman Moore, and so many others who have been movers and shakers in our communities over the years. And so it's truly a pleasure to be able to serve in that way and provide those stories so that people can be able to be inspired and hopefully spark innovation, creativity, and action on their end as well. And I've been marketing a little bit on the personal side outside of the podcast, been a marketing professional for close to 15 years, over 15 years, working in different industries, including automotive, tech, sports and entertainment, retail, and consumer products, you name it. And had a chance to work on so many dope campaigns and innovative pieces. And now I get to bring that to my podcast.
Yes, and I definitely want to say your podcast, what you are doing in the community, especially when it comes to uplifting not only Black owned businesses and entrepreneurs, but essentially what you're doing is you are paving the way for a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs as well, whether it be marketing, podcasting, or even just the ability to want to start a business. And we know, being a minority owned business, oftentimes there is a struggle with finding funding, with finding support. But essentially what you are doing, you're definitely uplifting those that are in the entrepreneurial sector, as well as a lot of the heavy hitters that you named earlier too. I saw the interview with our new mayor, Mary Sheffield. I caught a couple of some of the other interviews too. A lot of the people you've been interviewing, I've either met before, we're good friends, and definitely just want to say I am very pleased with the work that you are doing. And it's interesting. So I'm going to tell you how I actually found out about you.
Yep.
So there was a young lady. She was at the Detroit startup announcement when they announced the new grant for the tech funding,
Mhm.
and she saw me creating content and recording some stuff, and she asked, like what I did or whatever, and I told her, well, I do like cultural arts content, but I'm in the process of starting a podcast. And she says, well, there is somebody you need to watch out for. And I'm like, watch out for her? Okay. So then she introduced me to your podcast, and for me, I'm like, I don't believe in competition, right? And that's mainly because growing up as a choreographer and a dance educator, we've had to compete a lot, right? So for me, I believe if there's somebody that is doing somewhat of the same thing that I am doing, they're in alignment with what I'm doing, right? And I don't see a problem with collaborating with them and uplifting them as well, because you never know what you can learn, from that person. So I definitely want to say, I have always wanted to collaborate with you in some way, shape, or form, right? So I've definitely been watching you, definitely been watching your work and what you're doing for the city. And I must say, honestly, you are really putting in some work here in the city. So I just wanted to give you your flowers.
Thank you. That's high praise, and I really appreciate that. And whoever put you on to my podcast, tell them the check is in the mail. I appreciate them too.
Yes, yes. And she was a very sweet person too. When she brought up that you were my competition. I'm like, okay, I know. I said he's good people's, and I can't wait to meet him. So it was actually nice running into you at the Digital Empowerment Summit. I was like, oh, well, let me
Hmm.
go ahead and introduce myself. There was also an interview that I caught, and it was just your origin story about um how you pretty much became this rose that grew from the concrete because of your own personal endeavors, and it was inspiring to hear your story. One, especially with a lot of black men just trying to like figure out life and just navigate certain things. For me, listening to your story, it was very inspiring, and I definitely have to give you your flowers for that too. Starting a business at a very young age and having that entrepreneurial spirit, and just really moving forward with the mission to help our people out and to champion our people. So definitely got to give you your props for that. um at some point, when were you actually introduced to marketing?
Believe for me, I truly got introduced to marketing in high school. So I went to Cass Tech, and there we had to select curriculums. And so my curriculum was business and technology. And so I got a chance to be able to join a organization after school program, Business Professionals of America, also known as BPA. And I think that that's where I really first started to get introduced into marketing or aspects of marketing. And I really didn't dive more into it until I got to college when I went off to University of Michigan. And then when I was trying to figure out what my major was going to be, I know that communications was an aspect of that. So basically, for me, it was either business school, the sports management program, or communications. And either way, it was going to have some type of marketing, media, entertainment avenue to it for me. And communications gave me that opportunity to be able to dive into that. And then I had an internship with Michigan Athletics as a sports marketing intern. So I literally had to do all types of marketing activations for all of the different Michigan sports, and it really gave me a deep dive into what marketing looks like, driving campaigns, being on the front lines, and doing those initiatives and things like that. So I would probably say around high school, late high school, early college, or middle of college is when I truly got an understanding of what marketing was and how I would be able to create a career from that.
Okay, cool. And you know what's so funny? So, University of Michigan was actually my top school, but of course, I ended up going to Wayne State University and graduating from there. But my niece, she's at U of M right now, and my
Mm,
sister, who graduated from Johnson and Wales, she actually graduated with her BA in sports management.
dope,
Yes.
dope,
So we're a sports family. We grew up
nice.
around basketball. My parents, they did a lot of celebrity basketball tournaments. So
Hmm.
it was kind of like it was ingrained in us to, always be surrounded by, a lot of basketball players or just going to a lot of the basketball games. We used to go to Toronto a lot. This was back when Carlos Rogers played for the Toronto Raptors. Yes, and we used to go and spend the night at his house or literally spend the entire weekend at his house, and he was always so welcoming and so friendly, and we established that relationship because of the celebrity basketball tournaments. We used to work with Jalen Rose, of course, Derek Coleman, Steve Smith. So we were working with
Hmm.
a lot of people. So it's interesting that you said that because that was my sister's background, and then of course my niece is at U of M, and that was always my top college to go to. But I noticed you have a J. Cole picture in the back. So I know you're a J.
Yep.
Cole fan. So the marketing that J. Cole is doing, what is your take on that? What do you think?
Love it. I love it. It's fire, and I think that I wish people took that approach more because is something uh, to me that's kind of like true grassroots guerrilla marketing, whatever you want to call it. But truly, marketing is being able to understand how you can speak to the audience that you want to speak to and get them to take action at the end of the day. And so there's no greater form or the true essence of marketing than selling CDs out of the trunk of your car, which is
Yes.
like it's throwback, but like that is the true essence of I pull up on you, don't know nothing about me. You might not know nothing about this CD, but I'm getting you to buy something from me in person. Like that is the true essence of what that is. And so I love that. J. Cole kind of, I won't say he stole my idea because I hate when people start saying that, but I wanted to do something similar and may still do something similar for my podcast. But I think it's amazing. I love how he's doing it, being able to get out and touch the people. J. Cole is kind of a recluse, so to speak, and rightfully so. I mean, it's kind of hard to maneuver around the given the level of fame that he has. Similar to probably like an Andre 3000, he wants to be able to he want to be able to touch dirt. He want to go outside and kind of do what he do, ride his bike and do his thing. So I think it's an opportunity for him to kind of be able to mix the business with that as well. And like, look, I'm going to come out and I'm going to be accessible to the people in a real way.
Yeah.
And I'm doing this very strategically because I'm pushing the album, but it's an opportunity for him to really have that touch point with his fans. And I think he's always been about that because I remember when, yeah, I've been listening to Cole since early Cole. Like I probably caught on to him in 2010. He might have came out like 2008, 2009, somewhere around there. But
Mm-hmm.
he used to do Dollar in the Dream
Y'all in
tours
the
where it's
dream.
like
Yep.
Dollar in the Dream tours where it was only $1 to get in. And,
Yep.
it wasn't no gatekeeping in terms of being able to get to those concerts. And he was doing full shows. So, yeah, no, Cole, I love what he's doing. And I think that that's definitely the essence of true marketing.
Yeah. No, I agree. As a matter of fact, I remember when he did his Dollar in the Dream tour at St. Andrews, and Wayne State actually hosted that tour. And
Hmm.
you want to talk about like grassroots marketing and stuff and organic marketing. I know our age group, they're never going to understand why this type of marketing is so important, especially knowing that we live in a digital world now. Everything is moving at a rapid pace, and even with music, you're hot today and then you're gone tomorrow. So for J. Cole to take that approach and to really go out and talk to the people and just kick it with his fans, listen to the album and his I think it was like a Honda or something, one of his
Yep.
old school vehicles, and
Yep.
really dissect his music, but to really get to know where his fans are at too with his music and just overall how they're feeling. And with any type of organic or even grassroots marketing, I think the thing that we're missing now that we do have a lot of digital marketing, Instagram ads and meta ads, we're missing the sense of community. We're missing the sense of being able to actually feel something that is
Yeah.
tangible.
Yeah.
Um, having real conversations with people and stuff, right? So that's why what he's doing, like I call it the experiential marketing approach, because he's doing these pop-ups, but just him really getting down to like the nitty-gritty and really just trying to see where everybody is at, not just with his music but also where he is as an artist. Like I remember going to one of his tours, Born Center, and that was at the Masonic Temple, and
Yep.
people.
I was there.
Oh, okay, cool. So the beginning of the tour, when he was in the car and got into the car accident in Detroit, but he was stuck between heaven and hell. He was stuck in between purgatory. And I'm like, I wonder if a lot of people caught that reference or if it just went over your head. But that's how important hip hop was, especially to our generation. It made you actually sit and think about things. And I know one thing you can definitely appreciate is J. Cole's approach to marketing, especially marketing his brand overall. I'm gonna be honest, I did not see the tour coming. I did not see the
Hmm.
tour coming. He definitely caught me off guard with that. But I am glad that he did it that way in order to push his tour out. So for me, that was definitely some clever marketing for sure.
Yep.
Now, your podcast. When did you decide, you know what, it's time to start a podcast now?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, the concept had started in 2020 doing Instagram live videos, but after doing that for about a year and some change, I realized that I wanted to be more accessible and have a more flexibility in terms of sharing these Black business stories. And so I looked at what it would take in order to start a podcast platform or get my podcast streaming. And I had took a David Shands, which is one of the podcasters that I follow pretty closely. He did a 3-day start your podcast challenge or something like that. So I did that, and then I got all the information and insights that I needed. And once I got done with that, I was off to the races. And I was like, okay, let me start putting fuel to the fire and get this thing going. So did 6 interviews off the bat, like you suggested, to make sure I have runway to be able to put out episodes, because I knew I wanted to do it weekly or as often as I could, and then start rolling out the podcast audio. And then after a year about doing that, after about a year of doing that, then I started to do video and started to roll those out on YouTube. So that was the what the reason was for me wanting to go to doing a traditional podcast versus just staying with Instagram Live or doing something in that fashion.
Yeah, I started doing some Instagram lives during the pandemic, but I initially I launched my first audio podcast in 2018.
Mm.
And I noticed that a lot of the stuff that I talk about now on this podcast, it was kind of similar to what I talked about on the previous podcast, even though that podcast was more centered around wellness, in the Black community, and mental health, good mental health practices, right? But I'm like, I love hip hop. I love my culture. I love my city. And I love talking to the people of my city. So why not launch a podcast based around that? Now, something that I do find interesting now that I have decided to dive into video podcasting, I started traditional, podcasting. So for me, video podcasting is it's not bad, but it's just a little bit different. Like I feel like with the audio podcasting, one, nobody is looking at you, and you can kind of just say whatever you need to say off of the dome, or, even if you have a script. And definitely for me, I know I feel more comfortable doing the traditional podcast versus the video. But what do you prefer? Do you prefer more so the audio podcasting, or are you like, no, I actually enjoy doing the video interviews as well?
I prefer to do video, even though at times video can be a struggle for me, primarily when I have to record content on my own and just kind of be like a talking head. That's still a thing that I'm overcoming, but starting to do more of. But I do prefer the video aspect of it just because of I'm a big proponent of telling people that you can show up more when it comes to these digital platforms if you take long form content and then you scale it down to short and medium form, and it's a lot easier and a lot less work to be able to do it that way versus trying to do a bunch of short form videos and having to chop and edit those and make them look cool and do a bunch of effects. Versus if you have, let's say for example, you are someone an author and you got a book and you go on a bunch of different podcasts, you all these podcasts that you've done that's like 30 minutes to an hour, whatever the case may be, you can chop those up with your best portion or segment or tidbit that you came up with during that interview, and then being able to post that on social media and have content for months on end, like literally years on end, depending on how you stretch it. And in this world, in this day and age, I feel like you have to have a truly dynamic audio podcast and platform if you are going to be able to draw attention to it. Otherwise, I feel like you need both, because people want the avenue. You have people who are visual and they want to be able to have that opportunity to be able to see, and then you have people that are strictly audio or it's more convenient for them, and then you have people that do both and somewhere in between. So it's almost kind of, if you don't do it, if you don't do video, it didn't happen. But once again, I don't think that true crime podcasts are still the number one podcast that's out there right now, and
They're
those
good.
are those are completely audio. So, but that's what I mean, where you have to really be telling a compelling story or truly doing something. Your storytelling game got to be on 1,000 in order to do that, because I believe How I Built This is still strictly audio, which I listen to a lot with Guy Raz. And then, of course, like I mentioned, true crime podcast. But other than that, the podcasts that I listen to, they all have visual components. Whether they do it on YouTube, Patreon, they got a video of the podcast somewhere. But yeah, that's my preference, to do video, because it gives me more avenues to be able to develop content. Because with the audio, I got one thing. With the visual, I got one thing. And then I can chop these up and use them as many times as I need to in different ways.
Yes, I definitely agree. When it comes to posting, taking your long form content and then narrowing it down to short form content, How many days do you actually recommend most people that are creating long form, especially those that are looking to breaking into video and audio podcasting? How many times a day should they post the short form content?
Yeah, and I still haven't truly cracked that code because the algorithms are different on different platforms. But it really depends on what medium you plan on going. So I'll just share what it is that I do currently, and maybe somebody can steal my recipe or my process flow and be able to leverage that. So what I do from my podcast interviews is that I go and get 3 to 5 clips from that particular interview. On average, I'm posting at minimum 3 clips of the conversation, and then I post those throughout the week that the podcast is out before the next podcast is up, essentially. So that's what I do for Instagram. For TikTok, I don't have a podcast focused TikTok. It's my personal TikTok. So if it's a good clip that I'm in with the guest, then I'll post it, but strictly like on Instagram because that is the podcast platform page. I post my clips there, and I also post them on YouTube as well because YouTube Shorts is a great way to be able to grow your channel. And they're trying to compete with TikTok and Instagram. And so they're really pushing the short form content, even though 9 times out of 10 you're coming there for the long form.
Yeah.
So that's also been a huge help for me as well. So I'm able to take one video and use that in multiple places. And then also LinkedIn is super underrated for especially for podcasters, depending on what you're talking about. I have a business focused podcast, so my stuff is pretty safe to post on LinkedIn, so to speak. So yeah, I think that is also a great place. And then they're starting to push video content as well. So those are the places that if you take those 3 to 5 videos, figure out when to distribute them within the time frame that your episode is out before you got a new episode, that would be my bit of advice. But I still don't have like a, a definite structure that
System.
I can say do this and it's going to help you grow. But that's what I do, and it's been beneficial with me. It's been beneficial for me so far.
No, I definitely agree with you. I'm noticing that with Instagram, as far as cracking that algorithm code, if you're not using like a trending audio, that's like number one, or if the trending audio isn't related to whatever event is going on that week, for whatever reason, sometimes it's harder to get traction, especially if you have people that are following you that only interact with you for certain things versus whatever they've kind of set their algorithm, to send them. So sometimes you'll have family members that follow you, but they'll say, oh, well, I don't see your content. And it's like, well, that's probably because your algorithm is targeting something else that you like watching versus targeting, marketing or podcast or, whatever. So I know that's been an issue with Instagram. And then YouTube. I love YouTube Shorts. I did not know that YouTube Shorts was the bee's knees as far as cracking the podcast code. I have
Yep.
definitely seen more traction with the YouTube Shorts than I have seen on Instagram. TikTok, I agree with you. I have a personal TikTok and I don't feel compelled to post anything for sure, unless if it's like, oh, this is the best clip. I have to let people know. And I am just now breaking into LinkedIn because my podcast deals with, cultural artists. It is safe, thank God. But sometimes I have to let the cultural artists know, like, hey, try not to use profanity on this episode because I still want to be able to recap some of these episodes and use them, for ad space. Now, that's another question I wanted to ask you. As far as picking like your top engaged recap, are you a believer in purchasing ads for your podcast post? Like, if you're like, oh, this was like the best clip, so now I have to use this clip to continue to promote my podcast. Do you believe in investing in ads, or are you like, nope, I want to stick with that organic grassroots marketing?
Yeah, and I'll say this first. So I haven't invested in any ads specifically for my podcast since I've had it. I am a proponent of leveraging ads though, especially the ones via Facebook or Instagram Meta, whatever you want to call it, because they give you a lot of bang for your buck. I've in my different businesses. I did web design for like 10 years, and for my clients that I used to work with, when I did dabble in social media, I would use ads and we would get so much traction just by paying $20 to be able to reach X amount of people. And so I definitely am a big proponent of ads, but I think that you pay for ads when you are trying to accomplish a specific goal. And so what that could be is I am trying to get X amount of followers by X date. So let me run this particular ad. I think this is a good clip from the podcast, so I'm going to put money behind it. Or I have a business on the back end of my podcast and I want to be able to draw people to that. So let me use this clip that talks about that thing, and then I'm going to put some money behind that. So, but if you're just putting money behind it because you just want more people to see your podcast, I can't say that I'm 100% against it. I get it, but I think you get more bang for your buck if you have an actual call to action, or yeah, if you have an actual call to action attached to it. That's just my marketing brain, where
Yeah.
it's like let's not put awareness towards this just for awareness sake. Let's drive it towards doing something.
Listen, you are dropping some gems. I hope the listeners are paying attention because these are gems. These are definitely gems that you are dropping. And I must say you are definitely the marketing maven. So I give that to you. And the only reason why I asked you that is because I am a firm believer in grassroots marketing unless if it calls for you to have to invest in Meta or Instagram ads. But I kind of feel like you and I are around the same age. So as far as like how we approach marketing is somewhat the same too, which is good. But besides the marketing, which I know that you are an amazing expert in, what is your top five podcasts that you like? I have to listen to these top five podcasts.
That's a wonderful question. So, and it's changed over the years. So I'm trying to think more recently. What do I go to? So the Depot by or the Department by Omar El Khattori. I'm a big fan of his and his work. Found out about him on YouTube. Started a podcast. He has amazing content and great conversations. So I definitely tap in with the Department. Also, Side Hustle Pro by Nicola. She's in the Podcast Hall of Fame and talks to Black women primarily about their side hustle journeys that scale to full time businesses. So, definitely a big fan of hers. And the Social Proof podcast, which
Mhm.
I listen to by David Shands. I mentioned him earlier. Earn Your Leisure is a part of my like holy grail in terms of podcasts because they were a big game changer for me in terms of inspiring my show and what I do now. And let me see. As far as the fifth one, I would probably say the pivot. I do enjoy the pivot a lot and what those guys have been doing since they left I Am Athlete. So yeah, those are probably the shows that I can tune in consistently the most.
Do you find yourself listening to your own podcast sometimes?
Occasionally, only if what I love and absolutely love, and I had to come to this realization, I think over the summer, but I've created a library of episodes and conversations that can be able to help guide your business journey or things that you may want more information and knowledge about. So if I think about a certain topic or thing, then I will go back to past episodes. And then also sometimes it's just kind of like, I haven't. I can't remember that episode fully. Let me go back and watch it and
Mhm.
tap in, or just to see the journey as well. Like, I remember when I was shooting like with that cell phone or whatever, and then being able to just say it like, okay, how's that? What does that episode look like now compared to my latest? And so sometimes I'll tap back in with episodes. I think I know that recently I had tapped back into the Mary Sheffield episode because well, I'm giving away. I'm giving away a secret. Not well, not a secret, but I was comparing how my episode was in terms
Mhm.
of content versus other people's podcasts that she might have went on or shows that she went on, and yeah, so that I was just kind of like, what, how did I compare against how did I compare against these other shows, and how might I be able to get better moving
Mhm.
forward based on some things they may have did or things I might have forgot, whatever the case may be. But occasionally I do tap back in with my previous episodes. It's not my go-to, but depending on the people, because sometimes I interview my friends and family, and so sometimes I want to listen back on those just to be like, dang, it's interesting to see where we are now versus where we were back then. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
Well, I would say this. That's probably one of the most refreshing things I've ever heard, especially as a creative myself. I always find myself going back to critique my own work to see what could I have done better, or studying other interviewing styles, especially for me, because I know for me, I want to get better at interviewing on camera. Because, like I've said before, being on camera for me, you would think being a 30 plus year performer, it would just come natural, right? And for me, I'm like, being on camera, I mean, it's okay, but overall, as far as asking the right questions and really diving into certain interviews, but also asking questions that are of subsidy is what matters to me. Um, Especially now venturing out into what I call, broadcast journalism, even though it's podcast. For me, I consider it broadcast journalism because I want to make sure that the interviews that I conduct, one, they come from a place of understanding and education, because that is ultimately my goal, right? Um, what was one of the most challenging episodes you had to film?
I bust out laughing because it really depends on where you catch me in the journey. It could be a challenge, but it's always something, as I'm sure you know. You've done multiple podcasts at this point, so I know that you know, and you were a live performer for years, so I know you know. But uh, but I think recently I had someone come on the podcast, and I was using my new cameras that I had. I had two different guests, and it wasn't difficult in the moment. Well, actually, no, it was difficult because it kept running into tef- technical difficulties because one of the cameras overheated, and then also I found out after the fact that the camera was out of focus, and so it was parts
Hmm.
of the interview visually that I couldn't use. Now the
Hmm.
audio was still able to have the full experience or the full length conversation, but I had to make some adjustments visually because it's literally like a chunk of the episode I cannot use because they are not in focus, and it looked crazy. So that was a recent challenge that definitely comes to mind. But I've also had challenges with people who've come on the show. I have the pleasure of being able to have a lot of people's first or early on podcast interviews, and nerves can get the best of you, and I've been there. And so it being able to try to stick with the conversation, and make sure that you give them opportunities to be able to expand more and get more into their bag, the stuff that you know that they know, because it's the reason why I asked you to be on this platform. And so just being able to, kind of stick those types of interviews out to make sure that you get the most out of those conversations. I think that those are some challenges that come to mind, off the top of my head.
Now, what was one podcast that you did, or should I say, one interview you conducted where you felt like this is the one that's really going to help my podcast career move in the direction that I needed to go in? Which podcast interview was that for you?
So the funny thing about that is it's been a few episodes or conversations that I felt like if I get this person on, I had this conversation, listen, this gonna be the one that get me going. And the tough lesson that I've had to learn is like you really don't know, because I've had some interviews that I feel like have not went as well, or I wasn't necessarily feeling in the moment, but those interviews have done well in terms of downloads and views. And then I've had interviews that I thought would be amazing and phenomenal and take off, and those interviews have been duds and flopped in terms of views and downloads. So um, I don't know if I'm trying to think of one that might have aligned, and I want to say possibly. I think it's two. I think of Mary Sheffield, because that one is my second most watched video of all time
Mhm.
currently, and held the record for my most watched video for a while up until recently. And that one, I think I knew like having her on there would be a big deal, but I didn't know the video would take off the way that it did. And then also Charity Ward, or she goes by Charity, the singer, and she amazing performer, and I had been a fan of her work for a couple years before I had reached out for an interview, and she came on the platform, and we just had a real like just literally just a real conversation, and she was sharing where she was with her music and creativity, and basically how she was gearing up to get back in her bag, and the bag that she was gearing up to get in has been the run that she has been on lately, where she's done so many amazing things with her creativity, with her performances and opportunities and things like that. And so it's great to that's a speaking of episodes you look back on, that was a great one to look back on because it was not too long after that moment when she like really got into gear and did
Yeah.
everything that she said she was going to do in that episode. And that was my most watched episode for a long time as well. So I would probably say those two are probably times when I thought that where it kind of aligned, where I said if I get these people and I have this type of conversation, it's gonna be it's gonna be dope. Like it might take off. And yeah, those are probably the two situations where it actually did.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I know for sure Mary Sheffield, I as soon as the interview popped up in my newsletter, I was like, oh, this the one. This is the one. I was like, everybody is definitely gonna watch this one. And it was timed out perfectly. So I mean,
Mhm.
that's good marketing too. With marketing is also being able to interpret the market and the trend that may or may not be going on during that time, having that intuition. So I guess your intuition kind of kicked in, like, okay, well, let me get this interview, let me do this interview around this time.
Mhm.
And with her running for mayor for the city of Detroit, it definitely was in alignment with everything that you were doing. So I definitely commend you for
And
that
one
interview. Mhm.
appreciate that. One more that I think about in terms of what you said in terms of alignment, Detroit Diamond. So she had came on the show. She was fresh off of being on Netflix Rhythm and Flow season 2, and me and my wife had watched the whole season, and and we liked how she represented. Like she had great energy, great attitude the entire time, and I was like, you know what? And then so I started following her, and then when I saw she had made a call out, basically saying like, hey, I'm looking to do podcasts and stuff like that, and I kind of got nervous. I thought because I seen she had done podcasts before, but she didn't talk about the show yet because the show had just ended. So she went
Mm,
on as kind of promotion of the show, but she couldn't talk about anything on the show. Once it wrapped up on Netflix and the season was out, then she could talk freely about it. And so being able to get her on, I believe that was at the top of 25, being
mhm.
able to get her on while that season was out, that's still probably that's top 5 interviews as far as views on YouTube right now. So like that timing, being able to be intentional about that timing. But I also really I was approaching it. I thought less about timing and my interest as a fan of the show, and then
Mhm.
becoming a new fan of her content and her work. That's how I more so was thinking versus, oh, if the show just dropped and let me get so yeah, that was another one that I throw in there.
Oh no, I can definitely agree. And I came across her video footage on Instagram because I hadn't even heard of her yet. And when I saw it, I was like, I was proud to be a Detroiter. So I definitely comment under the video. I was like, listen, if you are not proud to be a Detroiter in this moment, I mean, you're a hater at this point. So
Yeah.
she definitely put on for the city, and I'm gonna check
Mhm.
out that interview too. Um, was something I was gonna ask you, and it literally just, but it'll come back to me.
That's my fault. That's
No,
my fault.
it's okay. It's okay. Listen, a mom brain, premenopausal, it happens, apparently. That's what I'm finding out now in my late 30s, that once you have a kid and you start going through perimenopausal, it does something to your brain. It fries your brain. But that is okay. We digress. So moving on. We talked about marketing, we talked about podcasting, um, we talked about J. Cole, which of course I think he is definitely in my top 5 of rappers, and what he's doing as far as his marketing approach as an artist. And I know you got some books in the back. So you gotta tell me, what are some of your favorite books right now? What are you currently reading? Because I got my library over here too. So I gotta ask.
Yeah. Yep. So I'll show you this one. So I'm actually reading this for work right now. As I mentioned, I work in tech, and so we're doing this as a team team building activity. But it's Talking to Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell. And if you know anything about Malcolm Gladwell's books, those like he really does the research and dives deep on different topics and does so in a compelling way. So this is pretty good so far. I believe I'm 5 chapters in, and that's a really good read. And then also for personal, let me see if I can. Here we go. So Earn Your Leisure. You Deserve to
Yes.
Be Rich. This is one that I got a signed copy, and then I got another copy that I actually bought, but ended up getting a signed copy when I went to their event. And yeah, looking forward to digging in that one personally. And I got some other ones back there from some folks. But in terms of what I've actually read and what are my favorites, one is a podcasting book. And let me see if I well, one that I see back there, Shoe Dogs by Phil Knight. That's one of my favorite books about business in general. It's a phenomenal memoir. Phil Knight did a great job telling his story and whoever he worked with on it, but that one's super dope. And what else? What else have I read back there? Lucky Me by Rich Paul. That's a pretty good memoir as well. And I'm trying to see what else I got back here. The podcast book, I believe it was essentially like how to monetize your podcast or 7 ways to monetize your podcast. That gave me a lot of great perspective on how to be able to build a business around the content that I create. And then also $100 Startup. I always tell
Mhm.
people about that book because
Yes.
it's a great way to be able to help you not think so much about the glitz and the glamour, but really find a way to get to your minimal viable product, what they call your MVP. Like what's your ground zero and how to get started. And it gives a ton of examples of that. So those are some of the books that I've read in my collection and some of the ones that I'm currently reading. And I the laundry list is too long for the ones I need to be reading or should have been read, but yeah, we'll stop there.
I understand. My library and record collection is the exact same way. I listen to two audiobooks at once and then I read a book at the same time. So I definitely understand. But the way my brain works, I don't know, I could probably do five or six things at one time, and at some point I will experience burnout. But yes, the $100 startup. My sister told me about that book, so I'm going to check it out now because she said it was a good book. You said it was a good book. I'm gonna check it out. I'm gonna
Do it.
order it. But
Do it.
definitely heard that it helps anybody that is looking to dive into entrepreneurship. Something else I wanted to ask you. So when you are booking your guests, like what is your process? Your inspiration for booking certain guests, and do you just do like a cold plunge and you say, you know what, I don't know this person, but I'm gonna reach out? Or are you like, oh, I'm gonna follow them, kind of study them, build rapport, and then finally go in for the kill?
All the above, honestly. And so the where it started was me being able to reach out to people who were already in my network that I knew were entrepreneurial or creative or had dope professional gigs that I wanted to learn more about. And I started the conversation with them. And then naturally having those and then also it's people that I didn't know or might have been in proximity to. And I would reach out to them and say, hey, I really enjoy what you're doing, been following you for a while. Would love to be able to have you on the platform. Now, that approach and process hasn't changed much, except for me now it's a lot more inbound versus outbound. So there's still a healthy amount. I would probably say it's still maybe 60-40 in terms of outbound versus inbound. But I do have a lot more folks reaching out to me now and pitching me in terms of PR publicists who want their get their clients on the platform potentially, or people themselves who are looking to be able to go on a podcast and might see some alignment. And then I have my own kind of internal list or running list that I keep of people who I think would be very interesting. And most of them I don't know. Some of them I do know or kind of sort of know. And so it's just a ongoing list of that to be able to seek out those people and just reach out to them, whether it's DM or if it's email, whatever their professional contact methods they have available. That's what I try to use, whatever is accessible. So if I can't find, I prefer email. That's just me. I'm old school. If I can get an email to you, that's what I would like to do. But if you don't respond to that email or I can't find one on you, I DM you. And so just kind of try to find it, or I put a message on your website. Like I try to find an avenue to be able to get in there, and then I'll try a couple of times before I just be like, okay, maybe not right now, or just leave it alone completely. But yeah, that's pretty much the process. And the longer you go, and for anybody who is getting started or still trying to figure out that process, the longer you go, the more you'll start to get people coming to you. And then if anything, I would just encourage you to have some type of system. So what I really enjoyed about your process and being able to submit my information to get prepared for this interview was super simple and straightforward. And so that I think that's a huge superpower to be able to have when you are trying to like make that process easy for people getting on the show. Don't have a whole bunch of messages back and forth. It should be, hey, I'm interested in having you on. Here's my scheduling link, and then I shouldn't really have to talk to you until the day of the interview, pretty much like that. I would encourage you to try to figure out how to build a process like that.
Well, I will say this. You may not know this, but I'm going to tell you anyways. You actually inspired me to set up my systems, and I'm going to tell you why. You were the first person I reached out to about interviewing, and you said, "Awesome. Where's the scheduling link?" And I said, "What?" And I had to go back. And I was like, oh no, let me go set this stuff up. And I literally created, when I say an entire business strategy system off of that one request. So you inspire that. So thank you. Thank you very much. I have to give this up to you.
For
So
sure.
I appreciate it. Okay. Because that definitely it threw me for a loop. Because again, I was so used to just, reaching out to people or just, talking to my friends or people that were interested in coming on the show. And then of course my previous podcast, I think I did a lot of solo episodes too. So I didn't have to worry about that. But when I knew
Hmm.
I was like,
Right.
okay, I want to actually talk to people, I knew that I needed to have a system set up. So thank you. Thank you for that. Um, all right. The last question I'm going to ask you, if you can impart any wisdom on any aspiring new podcaster or current podcaster, what would you tell them?
I would tell them to get your business in order, get your systems in order, because at the end of the day, the way that I come from, I deem myself a creative, but I had the pleasure of working in corporate and being able to also have more so business focused than creative for the bulk of my life so far. So I come at it from a different lens. And then, like I said, marketing is about getting people to take action and not just awareness. That's more so like advertising. So I want to in part that people build some type of systems and structure around what it is that you do, especially if you're trying to monetize, you're trying to make money. You're going to have to be able to show somebody your book of business or your library of episodes and content, what it is that you talk about, what's your mission, things like that. So I come from the old school of creating a business plan, resumes, all those type of things. So always keep that in mind just so you can stay ready, so you ain't got to get ready when it comes to those opportunities, regardless of what it is. Even if you're not looking for money and you just really want to create, there could be bigger avenues for you to be able to create. You don't know who's going to come along and want to see and do more. So I would encourage you to get some systems and business around your things, even if it's just simply booking guests, because you don't know who is that person that's going to come on, and you will be able to develop a relationship that could change your life or provide you opportunities. And as long as I've been doing this, and I know it's similar to you, you come across people you get a chance to build relationships with, and you don't know who they're going to introduce you to in terms of the next person or the next opportunity, or who they're going to put you in front of, or mention your name. Like you said, somebody had told you about my platform, and we had never met before or had any touch points until the Digital Empowerment Summit. So that you want to keep those things in mind. So the more tight you can get your ship together when it comes to your creativity, whatever medium it is, the better.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. And I can definitely attest to that in more ways than one. And of course, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. So that I do agree with. Well, Denzel, I want to thank you for coming on today's episode. It has been a pleasure conversing with you and definitely allowing the audience to pick your brain. Again, you are really moving the culture forward with what you are doing with your podcast, as well as just working in marketing, working in tech, and just being a black man just trying to make a difference in his community. So I can definitely appreciate what you are doing in the community, especially here in the city of Detroit. Now, besides the podcast, because we know the name of your podcast is the Black Fridays podcast, but where can we find you on social media?
Yep. So you can tap in at Black Fridays podcast on Instagram and also YouTube. And then Denzel Turner, Denzell Turner, on Instagram as well. And then TikTok, I believe, is Denzel Turner also. And then if you want all things Black Fridays, you can go to the website, www.blackfridayspod.com, and you can input your information to join our newsletter to be able to stay abreast of different events that we're doing, new episodes and information. And I'm in the process of developing a new podcast creator community. So I want any fellow podcasters that's out there listening, aspiring or current podcasters, make sure that you tap in. Feel free to send me an email directly or shoot me a DM saying that you're interested, and I'll make sure that I get you in that community. That's going to be free, and then I'm rolling out some other resources as well. So just tap in, info@blackfridayspod.com, and you'll get me.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much again, Denzel, for joining us on today's episode of the Starving Artist Podcast. We are here to preserve the culture, one curator and innovator at a time. We will check you all out on the next episode. See ya.